of it'll be a little awkward at first. At least it was for me, a little anxiety-provoking. But you know what? It was great. And we need to get back to those social connections that are done in a safe way. And I do encourage people to go out to those restaurants who have taken the time to develop a plan to do it right so that they can protect staff and they can protect our customers and that we can have some growth, particularly, our small businesses, our small restaurants, our restaurants who are missing us, and the people who have been off work for this period of time. So yes, I strongly endorse people going out and doing it in a safe way.
I'll send Andrea up when I'm leaving.
Next question is from Tanya Fletcher, CBC.
Okay.
Hi, Dr. Henry. Looking at the virus origins from the modeling, is it a surprise travel from China wasn't more significant in terms of infections? And conversely, why were cases from Europe and Eastern Canada ultimately that much more significant? And sorry, just one more kind of sidebar. Considering how well Richmond has done, 0 cases there since at least mid-May.
Just remember, it's an order.
Population there. Is there a sense perhaps the community's focus early on with voluntarily adopting measures like masks and self-isolating that might have helped keep those numbers down? And any answers in French would be appreciated. Thank you.
And we realize that nobody wants to come to them no more.
I think that is
because they don't want to leave their name behind.
I think our
and have a mob of healthcare professionals
when we know that most of the introductions into BC
follow them home
and everywhere else in the world were coming
isolate
from China,
their family.
Where we were working with the community,
if somebody should
the
die,
community themselves in BC.
You're never going to find out the truth.
Where we supported people, and we talked about it in January and February about
I know people like said I
community
wouldn't listen to
activities
this.
to support people coming from China to self-isolate, and
it's those
we in
people that are
public
rallying
health made sure that people who came in who had symptoms
coronavirus
were tested, that we
into the province of
targeted
British
our
Columbia,
testing on
Canada,
people we knew were at risk,
and taking it
but
home
that
to
we
their
had a
loved ones, and it's receding into the community.
Target testing strategy way back then. You may remember that we encouraged anybody who was concerned, and that's how we picked up somebody who had picked up the virus in Iran. So yes, I do think those made a difference. We once we started to get a lot of floods of cases, if you will, it became much more challenging to find people, and there was a time when people didn't realize.
The woman reminds me of a fucking prude that secretly enjoys sex. Maybe she's a raging lunatic in bed. Who fucking knows? It's like watching a fucking cartoon. I've said this before. I just had to make a point. We don't know who we're talking about or who I'm talking about here. No names mentioned. Just be kind. We'll get through it together. Whew. Okay, on to serious business now. I have a video somebody sent to me on Facebook that talks about Italy and how they have gone against whoever and just started doing autopsies on these people that are supposedly dying from, COVID-19. And their bodies are so contaminated that they got to go from hospital to crematory with nobody witnessing what the fuck is going on, right? Anyway, they're starting to do autopsies on these bodies, and they're finding out that COVID-19 is not a virus. It is more like a bacteria. Because the Spanish flu mutated from dirt, and it was transported around with the war veterans as the government was shipping them to different barracks. And because a lot of these men came out of the trenches and had been living in the trenches for months and months and months with the runoff of the water from the rains going into the trenches as dead bodies and feces and urine and rotten food and garbage and you know, these men were literally forced to live in these trenches under those kind of conditions. That is where the Spanish flu fucking came from. It wasn't simply just a virus. Okay, it was a bacterium that manifested from spoilage of their surroundings. And because in the whenever the Spanish flu was, 1918 or whenever it happened, right? They didn't have running toilets and running water for more than half the country as a whole in the United States of America. People weren't regularly having baths. You know, the washroom situation was bad. And in those days, you know, people didn't necessarily wash their hands as much as they do now because water is much more available. You know, soap is more available. You know, that's why it spread. But initially spread it with the veterans being transferred from barrack to barrack as they were being stockpiled in terms of, you know, put in large numbers into small barracks so that whatever contagions that were in the environment spread quickly, right? It's like the puking flu, right? If puking flu isn't a flu, it's a bacteria that you come into contact in the environment, you touch it, right? It takes a couple, 2-3 days for it to die in the actual environment, people, right? That's why if somebody has the puking flu, you don't go into their house, right? Unless, of course, you make sure you don't do anything in terms of introducing it in through the mouth. When my girlfriend called me over when I was pregnant with my son, come over and visit, she didn't tell me that she had the puking flu in the house the day before, with her son puking, with her puking, right? So, of course, I didn't know. So when I went to her house and she handed me a drink, she was the one that was touching fucking everything. So whether I put it in my fingers in my mouth, which more than likely I did not, but because she handed me something, right? And maybe she did something to the glass or whatever it was, went into and that's how it gets into your system. And then I got the puking flu and I was sick for fucking over 24 hours. Really, really bad. Right? Like really bad. And the only way to get rid of it is to let your gut clear out. Well, anyway, I came across, somebody sent me a video, and I'll do another video on this later on, a different point, because it deserves to be investigated, to verify that, you know, do the fact checks on it, because these politicians that are ordering for us to give up our civil liberties and our rights to our own body so that they can push a political fucking envelope, okay? They're not giving you all the information, people. They're lying to us because they're on that UN fucking roundtable with the federal government. And again, the only thing that this person is interested in is what's in your portfolio and anything extra that comes in through that illegal organ harvesting trade, the fentanyl fucking trade, the laundering of money through the housing market, because it all trickles in to the government employees' portfolios. One way or another, it trickles in. So anyway, this little video was going on about how the Italian doctors, because they had such a hard time with the coronavirus, some doctors just said, fuck it, we're going to autopsy. And they did their autopsies, and they're finding that the blood of the bodies clotted because of a bacteria. And this is why Trump says to use that particular medicine. You can use aspirin as well, right? Starts with a C, to prevent blood clotting from this bacteria, because that's basically what's killing people. It's not a virus. You can't even really technically vaccinate against a virus, people. A virus is something that has to run its course, right? I had German measles when I was like 2 or something like that. I have natural immunity to German measles. If I was to go for a blood test today at age 60, it shows that I had German measles. That's what viruses, I guess. Is German measles a virus? I don't know. Is smallpox a virus or is it a disease? It all depends. A cold is a virus. You can't inoculate against a cold, right? There's a difference between diseases, viruses, and bacteria. But I'm thinking these professionals, right? They're misleading us with misinformation because we know that they're pushing a political agenda that doesn't include us, except for when it comes time for that heavy hand, which it will come. Because when you're poor, that heavy hand always comes. That's why they do it. Because we're dealing with power fucking freaks, right? Control freaks, right? We have them in our own personal relationships, okay? This isn't any different. It's just on a whole new level. So anyway, basically, it's saying that politicians, this political agenda is deceiving us, and that COVID-19 is structured around a bacteria that can be resolved with antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, and things that control the blood clotting in your blood so that your body can eventually flush it out, get rid of it, run its course, whatever it is, right? Stop it in its tracks. Just like when you have a stomach flu, which is a bacteria. It's not a virus, it's a bacteria that's why you have to empty out your stomach, to empty out the fucking bacteria. Okay? That's what makes you sick. If you're nursing, if you've been a nursing mother, right? Nursing, and you get a clogged duct and it gets infected, what happens? Chances are only two things are going to happen. Your breasts are going to get really swollen and it's going to really hurt, and you have to, right? But you have to get an antibiotic in order to kill the bacteria from that clogged duct. Because if you don't, you're going to wake up one morning, and it can happen in a space of 24 hours, people. I nursed all my kids for over 7.5 years between 5 children, okay? One night, I went to bed. Next morning, I woke up. I'm telling you, I couldn't walk. I was so sick. And it wasn't because I was sick. It was because my milk duct clogged and it got infected somehow, some way, that poison from that infection traveled through my body and made me so sick that I thought I was going to die. So needless to say, I had to be rushed off to emergency, right? John's wife, Auntie Joan, came and picked me up, people, and took me to the hospital. And I got antibiotics for that, and within a day or two, everything calmed down. And of course, I had to, express my milk into the bathtub or the sink or whatever, because, you can't really give it to a baby, eh? But that's how fast a bacteria or a bacterium, right? Agent can make you sick. Well, I just want people to know that we're being lied to. One way or another, people, we're being lied to, okay? They are trying to rewrite life, okay? They are using fear with threats, with presumed authority, because of the conditioning that we've been grown up to think under a democracy, right? When in fact, we've already lost so much basic human rights through this manipulation of rewriting life without getting the true information, right? I mean, they're basically starting to say that these few little protests that we've got going on out here and in the United States is reseeding the coronavirus to give them more power, more authority to take away more of your rights. As they give you, what is that called? Presto, whatever science, because nothing is really being fact-checked. And now that the fact checks are starting to come in, we're going to have to find out how long they're going to deny that information from us. They're going to call it fake news. Don't listen to fake news. No. Listen to Global TV, MSN, all the ones that ask the questions that we want. Because those questions we know how to answer. And those questions are going to continue to lead you down the garden path. They might piss you off a little bit, but they're not going to dig deep and get to the core of the matter, people. They're not going to come and say, oh, we've known about New Nations Unity, Judy Chorney, all these years. She used to run around out in the community when we were out there taking videos of the cops with her Marex hat on, but we ignored her back in those days, just like we know about her with her lawsuit with ShaMay being hooked up to machines for 9 days. We're not going to ask you about that. No, because if I ask you as a news reporter about that, and how can you guarantee me that all these other people that are locked behind closed doors like Fraser Health, Island Health, Northern Health, all these health authorities, dirty secret, people. Oh, dirty secret. Oh, dirty secret. Oh, we don't want to talk about the dirty secret. How do we know that there ain't a whole lot of fucking dead bodies being hooked up to machines for fucking science experiments, because this is how morbid these people really are. And being that they're old, nobody's gonna miss them after they're fucking gone, because, there's money involved because they came out of care homes. So the families are fighting for the care homes, even though some of these bodies could be very, very well be subject to very heinous experiments, people, based on a corona so-called virus, hooked up to machines like ShaMay for 9 days, as taxpayers are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars per fucking individual. I can tell you right now, it costed more than $100,000 to keep ShaMay's dead body that came in dead as a doornail on machines for 9 days in the ICU ward. We're probably looking at $500,000, if not $1 million fucking dollars. Okay, why are the news reporters not asking about that? Because it hits too close to home. Because they're doing something else with those bodies, people. Not only are they redirecting public tax dollars into a healthcare system that's already corrupt and commits heinous crimes against the people that they target. Because they don't target everybody. Remember, if they target everybody, then obviously it would be shut down. But if they only target 10% at a minimal, at a low ball, right? The 10% that get targeted just sound like fucking lunatics. Or they're like Ciera, and nobody gives a shit about that girl. Right? Because she's just a little hoe out in the streets that's a junkie. That girl. Right? So, the other 90% that are going into the hospital system, they don't care. Because they're so self-absorbed into their own fucking issues and been conditioned to hate that girl. That girl is the problem, that they're blind to the fact of what they're doing behind the closed doors to these bodies that are hooked up to machines. And because they know that if people start seeing what they're really doing, there's going to be more Judys in the fucking world standing up and saying something. But no. They don't want the Judys standing up and saying something. No. So they're going to make it so that people can't see for themselves and be a witness to how their loved ones, one, are being treated, and two, how they're dying. And then to not be able to fact check how they died is like a 3-time whammy, double smack, punch, kick, stab, whack, until you're dead and gone. as these people continue to accumulate a whole bunch of wealth. Oh, I'm so fucking rich. Oh, ooh, that's my orgasm right there. Oh, I'm rich. Do you know how exciting it is to be rich? This is why you're not getting the news fucking medias that are bought and paid for by these people asking hard questions. They're just a smokescreen. That's all they are. So, keep it in the back of your mind. There are real doctors, real ethical human beings taking it upon themselves to get to the truth and are discovering that we're dealing with a bacteria that can be cured with a number of medicines, I guess you could say. But you see, that wasn't the agenda. The agenda was to bring in the UN agenda and to amp up these science experiments that they're doing on bodies. They just don't want people witnessing it. Or they want to be able to scoop up on the bodies like they did with Ciera. Take out what they want and then play mindfuckery with you. Because of the coronavirus. You don't want to contaminate the vampire's turf, people. Because only vampires would do shit like this. What do vampires do? They suck the life out of the human being. Right? And they either do one of two things. They either kill you and you're dead, or they turn you and make you like them. There's only two things they do. Right? So anyway, what you're going to see next... That's right, Amari. Yes. You tell him. You tell him. They say, back off. Back off. Back off, eh? Yeah? Back off. My body, my right. Right, Mari? Yeah, even though you've been injured, he has a right to peace, liberty, prosperity, hope and opportunity, and fucking safety. Right? Not be locked up behind closed doors through a corrupt healthcare system that these people don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about it, people, for a fucking reason. And they close the doors on hundreds and thousands of people because they don't want to be held to account as to what's going on behind those closed doors like they're dirty secret. Okay. Oh, I gotta get over it. It's just so traumatizing. But I'm in a position of power. And when I'm ready, I'm gonna suck it to you. You watch, bitch. I'm gonna show you who's boss. Ooh. That's called persona. If I had a persona like that, I'd be a little worried. Right? At least with me, you know what you get. I wear my emotions on my sleeves. So, anyway, what you're gonna see next is, me downstairs putting away food storage and talking about how I think I'm going to, what do you call it? Try and bring in a little series here. Once a week. I'm going to try, people. I can't guarantee because, you know, I get so tired and burnt out with the yard and everything and just everything. But I'm going to try. Right? Because this will motivate me to start moving things around. Where I take some of the stuff that I've canned, dehydrated, whatever it is, and make a meal for YouTube, right? I'll give it a name, and then once a week, right? So I brought up a couple of things up here to hopefully start that process, right? You know, obviously when I'm canning, I'm not necessarily cooking as I am canning. That's not to say that we don't eat here. It just means that I'm not cooking in the traditional sense of cooking, right? But I'm going to see if I can just, I don't know, throw in something different, right? And so that I don't want those meats that I made just canned recently sitting downstairs for a long period of time, because the next time I do ground anything, I'm going to make sure that I take out more of the fat. And like I said before I do ground hamburger, I'm going to buy beef, grind it up myself, and then can it, and that will reduce the fat even more, plus you get a better quality product, right? So I just wanted to say that, and other than that, I'm just gonna upload this now. Oh, yes, I think it's time. I think it's time. Oh, absolutely, it's absolutely time. Absolutely. Okay, people, I think it's June 4th, 2020. We're gonna have a different kind of day here, right? You gotta be flexible. So anyway, you can see I'm in one of my first and major, what is it called? Food storage areas. Okay, you can see I'm filling up the shelves. Now, I was going to go outside and dig in the dirt, but I'll do that tomorrow. Okay, do you see all that? Now I want you to pay attention to this. Oh, it's hard to see. Hold on. Okay, I'm not rushing, people. I don't get in here very often. I need to, but you know, this house is only so big, and I can only store so many things outside for so long. But I'm going to try and make this area more accessible. And I think what I'm going to do is, I'm going to try, people, right? You know me. Some things take me a while to catch up to it, even though it's on my mind. But I'm going to try and build in different, like, a different series, I guess you can say, of YouTube videos. I mean, it's one thing showing you guys how to make all this stuff, right? And maybe where to put it. But it's another thing to, what do you call it? Use it, right? Which I want to do. I'm looking for a key. I'm looking for a key for this little lock on this cupboard that's been locked up for the last time I was in here, which was probably a year and a half ago. At least a good year. Here we go. To see what's in here, because I haven't been inside here for so long I forgot. In the old days, I used to have to lock it up, right? Because I'd get raided. One time somebody came in here and took like 3 or 4 cases of canned salmon, which might be in this little cupboard. So it's going to be like Christmas, people. All right. Oh, my. Oh, my. Let's see what's in here. Oh, shit. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. See, I had to hide it. I had to hide it. This is all salmon. Right, 2013. Oh, this is perfectly fine, people. This is gonna be good. So, I'll take that one out, because what I want to do... Oh, here we go. Applesauce with skins. I don't know. Anyway, you can see what's going on in here. Right? There's white chocolate. I'll raid the dark chocolate, but not the white chocolate, because I don't really like white chocolate. But for emergency purposes, we've got it. These are spices, seasonings that have been sealed in a jar, sitting like this for a long time. So being that they're from 2011, you can see that. I'll bring these up and out. This is tomatoes. This one's from August 15. I told you I wanted to can tomatoes, right? So I'm going to bring out those jars, make them handy. I'm going to leave this stuff here. I don't know about today. I'm kind of stuck. I was going to go outside, people, but, you know, I can't leave Tisha down here by herself trying to figure this out, because we started putting these things in here. Do you see? So I'm teaching her right now. This is what I'm doing. I'm teaching her how to, one, balance the weight and, you know, that type of stuff. But since I'm in here, I am going to get her to get me a bucket of water, right? Little soapy water. Because some of these jars, with these trucks, just to give you an example, with these trucks driving back and forth up and down my fucking roads, you know, through the back alley, I want you to see this. This is what's happening. I don't know. Can you see that dust? Now, I've been here for 10 years, people. I've never seen these jars get as dusty as they are right now with all this traffic. Do you see that? Look at that. So what I'm going to have to do, since I'm here, and of course I'm having panic attacks because I'm not in the yard, right, planting plants, even though there's no sun, right? What do you call it? I'm just going to spend my day between here, and then we're going to go into Auntie ShaMay's room. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to show you what's going on in there. Because I told Tisha, like, we need to get up on with this sewing. You know, I want to teach her how to sew, right? Give her that opportunity before I go. And I don't want to go anywhere and buy little pants, like fleece pants for Amari when I can. They're so simple to make, people. They're so simple to make. And I've got all the fabric and everything. So, okay. So with this stuff, I mean, back in the day when I started, Fukushima was kind of like the catalyst to really get me deeper involved with being a prepper, I guess you could say, right? Which is namely what a lot of Americans do, right? They're preppers. This is what they do in the event of a major disaster, wherever that disaster may come from. And in those days, I had like 9 people in this house. So, you know, I was in my head factoring in, well, I got to look after 9 people in the event of a disaster that could last up anywhere from 3 to 6 months to a year, at least a year. So where I'm at right now, if it came down to the crunch, I could probably feed 6 to 9 people for the most part. You know, I'd still need bags of rice and a few bags of government flour to get us through, and, you know, maybe some shortening, right? You know, outside of that, though, fuck, we're rolling in the salmon, people. We'll be greasing good, right? You know what I'm saying? So, okay, but I have to move things along, right? So, I said, Tisha, I gotta be able to get in here. That's the first thing. So, and because my kitchen upstairs is so small, and now that, you know, it's spring is here and summer is coming, and I'm going to start canning again, like I got a space right here that's perfect for, you know, a 12-quart box of something, whether they're canned tomatoes, whether they're canned corn, because I want them in quart size, or whether they're apple juice, right? Because you know I always do apple juice every year, right? Or whatever it is in quart size jars that's going to get heavy. I keep this shelf now empty. As I moved the tomatoes that were in here over onto this side, plus I put those potatoes that I'll show you where I put them, right? But I have to use it. And with this meat that I just recently did, I probably didn't skim off enough grease on the porks. You know, like it because grease crawls, right? But if you put it in a dark, cool place, chances are your jars will be fine. But I don't want to lose my investment. Do you see? So rather than putting this away for 4 years in an emergency, I mean, this was just a test run, really. And to prepare for the second wave of this political genocide that millions of people are facing. So I'm going to keep this handy. What I'm saying is I'm going to keep this handy. I'm going to try and use everything that I've got in here, regardless of what it is. Because, you see, this here, I'll show you. I'm not rushing with my videos, people. Okay, Tisha. See, this is what Tisha didn't really grow up with this stuff, right, people? In terms of, like, me canning when she was little. Because I was out and about in the community doing community things versus canning in an apartment. But once I moved here and Fukushima radiation blew its fucking stack there in TEPCO, right? Power plant. You know, and I had 9 people that depended on me to feed them. And I had the yard to incorporate that, to do that, right? And the space a little bit anyway to build in that food prep. I have this. Do you see? Where's that flashlight? Do you see? You know what this is? This has been sitting there. Do you see? These are plums. They look like a red plum. So what I think I'd like to try to do, I'll try it, 2 to 4 times a month at least, right? To start circulating this food, because I want to make more food. Only I have no place to put that food. So, and before I let these jars pop, I'd rather pop them myself and eat them, pop them myself and eat them with things that go very good together. Plums and pork, we know, go good together. I can make a meal around this and then do a video on that to show you how it works, right? Versus hoarding it and waiting for the emergency. Because as these go down, and of course I'll give, like when I come in here, I'll take out 2 jars for myself and I'll give my son 1 or 2 jars depending if he wants it, right? Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't, right? Let's say you want a couple of jars of turkey. He'll go, yeah, Mom, that'd be great. So I, you know, right? And then what it does is it frees up room to do it again. And then the next time I do it, depending on the result, okay, depending on the result, because if you notice, there's a lot of grease on this jar, okay, and that's what can push up the lid, make it pop, and it has the ability to reseal itself. But if you put that white paper underneath the jar itself, because even if it pops, something's going to spit out, right? You've seen it, if you watch my videos, you've seen that when I canned that, what is it called? I'm not rushing with these videos. When I canned that turkey stock. Now, the reason that turkey stock was creating a vortex, and popping and closing and popping and closing and popping and closing because of that vortex, the lid, was because when I was using my pressure canner with just the weight on it, not the one with the gauge, but just the weight one, I was running it on high, right? Okay. Since having my gauge pressure canner, I'm now more prone to turn down my just pressure canner with the weight on it. Whereas in the old days, when I would can these things in that pressure canner, if you look at the date, I was running that pressure canner on high for however minutes, right? So that by the time you turned off, the canner, the heat, the canner was practically, well, it was empty. There was like very little liquid left in the canner. Like, not even, it didn't even cover the full bottom of the pot. That's how much water was pushed out of that canner through running that canner on basically a 9, right? Or, yeah, 9, like 8.5, 9, which is too high, technically, to be running a 10-pound pressure canner. But it did the job. It did a really, really good job. The only thing that you're doing in that situation is maybe overcooking the food, outside of if you were to turn your canner down between 3 and 6, right? Since I've got the gauge canner, when I'm using the gauge one, I'm finding that I'm having to turn down the stove temperature little at a time until it goes to almost 3, just to keep it at that 12, 10 to 12 pounds per pressure reading on the gauge, right? And even at a 3, it will start to heat back up. Whereas in the old days with my old pressure canner, I just run it on 9 right up until the 100 minutes was fucking over. And then by the time I opened up the canner, there was hardly any water left in it. So, these are well pressure can, trust me. Okay? And from what I can see in here, people, they're looking, everything is, because I had to hide them. Because people were stealing my jars of salmon. So I took them in here, you can see. I locked them up. Right? So, I'm going to try to get in here twice a month, take out 1 or 2, 3 things, 4 things, whatever it is, and try and do a video, and we'll name it something, like a little series, right? To show you how it all interconnects with each other. And then the other thing I wanted to show you, there, just hold on, because I have to start using this stuff up. This here, I don't know, it's hard to see in here. Can you see how rich I don't know if you can see that. I wonder what would happen. I don't know how to turn on the light on this camera. Plus, it needs to be recharged. But anyway, this is pretty deep purple still after all this time. This is shredded beets, people. Okay, from 2011. This is why I like... Whoa, almost dropped it. This is why I like these old wine bottles, because they really hold the food really, really good. Remember what I told you about dehydrating food? It preserves 85% or more of the actual nutrients. So as long as it's not getting too dark or too discolored, this, I'm telling you, you could use this in soups. Or you could make like a beet mixture combined with something else. And because this stuff has been stored down here for so long in the dark, encased, hold on. Stuff like this is okay because it's vacuum sealed, right? I got lots. They're vacuum sealed, and because they're vacuum sealed, they'll last a long, long time. These will be perfectly fine, right? But I want to start using it somehow, some way. So maybe one day I'll come down here, I'll grab some rice, I'll grab some plums, I'll grab some ground pork, and between those 3 and anything else I might grab, I'll make a meal. And I'll do a video on that, and I'll try and do that 2 to 4 times a month. And that will motivate me to start moving this stuff along, as well as help people to get motivated for oh, look at this. This is jelly. Now, jelly takes a little longer to make. Do you see? It takes, look at that. Look at that. Can you see? Oh, I'm going to bring this up, people. Jelly takes a little longer to make, but boy, oh boy. Who wouldn't want that? That, I'm telling you. Oh, I'm going to bring that up for sure. I have a whole bunch of them down here. I guess my jelly was like gold, like my salmon. Yeah, no, some is jam, some is jelly. So anyway, tomatoes, those ones are from 15. So I'm going to take out some of this, but you can see how this dust is even getting up in here. So I'm going to be dusting in here, and then I'm going to come back, and then, like I said, we're going to end up, what's in here? More spices. Do you see that? Those are all different kinds of spices. Right? This is maple syrup, which never goes bad. It's like honey. Right? Tomato sauces. Tomatoes. So, there's curry, right? Which it's never been opened, so when you open it, it's going to be pretty much exactly the way it was when you sealed it. Alright. Okay, here's an example. Cauliflower. This actually looks pretty good, people. Do you see how it's retained its color? I don't know. If I had the camera, maybe over here. Got a spotlight over there. Oh, there you go. Do you see how that's retained its color? Look at that. This is nice. This you can make really nice soups with, right? I'm just looking. Okay, I'm just looking. Here, back in the day, these are apple pieces, dehydrated apple pieces that have been sitting encased for a long, long, long time. But this is perfectly fine. Now, sometimes, I don't know, sometimes jars will sweat. Okay, this particular jar is sweating. I can feel it because it's been cold. Right? Now, haven't quite figured that out yet, but I've got other apples in here that I did when Uncle John was here. 2014 apples, 2 tablespoons lemon in them, in terms of like apples, right? The jars are perfectly fine, right? I can feel that. But in that situation, because, you know, if I open it up, nobody's going to sit up there and eat all that at one time. But I would have to, in this case, plan to make like apple cake or something. Right? That's why I keep them. But I don't have time to make apple cake. But I'd have to make, or apple bread. You know, some kind of something where you can take that and make like 10 loaves of something. Right? And then freeze what you made. And then eat them as you go. Now, something like that would work really good for my son, so he can take half a loaf to work with him, right? So before I do anything, I'm going to see if I can do that. So those jars are there, and I'll get on to it. Just showing you what we've got in here, right? Why not? Okay, so we've got 4 jars there. I got one upstairs. Just don't have time to be making apple cake yet. Those are perfectly fine there. I've been hoarding brown sugar in this thing forever, and it's not bothering anybody, so it can just sit there. Not like I don't have brown sugar everywhere else. And then, of course, back in the day, I did the blackberries. This is full of blackberry. Alright? This is full of blackberry. And again, this is just in the event of an emergency, and, right? This was something that was easy to store. Those are perfectly fine. Here's more blackberries, so we'll have to do something with blackberry one day. Here's Orca, 2011. You see, this one can come out. I don't know. Well, there you go again. Here, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, hold on. Let me put it in the light so that you can see it, because I can already see it. Do you see that? That's pretty green, people. That's real green, for the most part, in terms of food storage. Okay? And this was done in... Do you see how green that is? And that's because it was in the dark, in the cool. Lower basement, or at least by the north wall. Find the north wall and build in your cubbies or food storage against the wall, because the north is always the coldest. So that's definitely something that I'm going to start using up. But we'll just leave it here for now. This is another one, but I've got one upstairs. Right? And I'm going to leave this here for the next tray of what is it called? The next tray of big 12 size quart jars. Right? So, hold on a minute. Okay, so now we're in Auntie ShaMay's room. Anyway, it's okay. You can see I've done more here. Alright. So, I am trying to repack where things make sense. Right? What is this? Turkey and chicken. Okay, so those two sizes. Hold on. Okay, so this is where I'm at right now. So over the next month, what I'm going to do, people, is I'm going to buy some more. Oh, speaking of that, I have peas and stuff. And yeah, hold on a minute. Okay, so as you can see, right, put those on the bottom, whatever on top, right, whole beef 2020, hamburgers, you can see, right, this is an old applesauce that I made, but I didn't put a label on it, so I'm bringing up one jar anyway. It's either applesauce or butter, apple butter. It's probably apple butter because I make a lot of apple juice, you know that. And then there's the relishes, right, which I have in other places. Here's some old beans, this is asparagus, okay. So anyway, what's down here? You say, let's label your boxes. Label your boxes. Right, label your boxes. Now, what I've decided to do here, this is a really good idea. For some of this old jams that I have, because you have to remember, people, Uncle John used to eat toast and jam all the time. So back in the day when I was making this stuff, it made sense, right? And same thing with ShaMay. ShaMay loved to eat jam all the time with toast. So this here, you can see, very nice. This is a plum. Listen to that. Plum blueberry. Right? August of 2015. So what I've decided to do with these miscellaneous of this that I have all over the place is I'm going to, what is it called? Can I get my coffee? I'm in my little hobbit hole. I always tell my members and friends I'm not Russian. so I'm not rushing. Now, this is a jam that I made a long... There you go. This one, not a good idea. Now, mind you, it's jam. It's probably fine, but this one's compost food. Looks like a couple of them have popped. Oh, there we go. But if you look, now, it could have been something that I've done in here because I'm moving shit around. But if you look, there isn't even any mold on that because of the sugar. But I'm not desperate for food, so that will go into the compost. Obviously, something happened. Here's another one. See this? I just pushed it down, but this one popped. So these three are no good. I mean, they're probably okay, but
I thought when cans pop, there's like
it depends. It depends on what they are. In the old days in granny farms, right, when the grannies used to, you know, out in the farms, right, people, they used paraffin wax to seal their jellies and stuff, which I'll show you one day. We can do it with paraffin wax.
Yeah, I know what that is.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, things can get in, right, into the jar, right? So you might get a little mold surface growing on top of the jam because it passed through the paraffin wax. Like, whatever has happened here has happened, like, very recently because there's nothing on this jam. There's no indication to say that there's even mold growing on it. So it's been recent for whatever reason. But let's just say if we were out in the farms and, you know, we were facing a food famine and, you know, food shortage and blah, 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 because the sugar preserves the fruit, which is already a high acid component, right, in terms of fighting off bacteria and stuff, all you would have to do in a case like that would be scoop out an inch off the surface and everything else underneath more than likely would be fine. Okay? Because of the sugar preserves the food itself, like salt.
Yeah.
Right? Like salt will preserve food. So, in this situation, now this one I just put down. You can hear it. There it is. Right? So 3 of them, for whatever reason, didn't make it. I don't know why. Right? Now I've been moving this box around, so it's hard to see. This is why I say you don't want to be pushing on jars, like banging them around, because all you do is just hit the edge and it can pop the jar. But this is something that was made a long, long time ago, and it used to be up in the cupboard. So, and then here's a relish, right? So, well, I'm glad I looked in that. Well, I'm going through all the boxes, right? And this is why I want to just, I think I'm going to do that 4 meals a month, right? I'll give it a little catchy phrase, and we'll start just going through this stuff because, you know, it keeps you on the ball. Now, this one here that just popped for whatever reason, again, you don't see nothing. There's nothing there. All right, absolutely nothing. But if it would have sat there for a long, long time, you're going to start getting, I mean, even the rim is clean, you can see. There's nothing even on the rim. Right? No molds, nothing. So this has just happened, like, recently. I don't know, maybe I put something on the box and popped some jars. Who knows? I'm moving shit around in here. So, now, what I'm going to do is, and this is why you want the white paper underneath your jars, right? Just in case, right? Because that's just, it helps you to determine if something popped and resealed, which doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. And that's why they recommend that for non-acid foods, like, you know, the vegetables that you have to can in a home canner, like a pressure canner, and meats, you always heat them up to, like, boil them, semi-boil, right, for 10 minutes, just as a backup measure for anything that you do when it comes to this stuff. Some people just open the jars and eat up straight from the jar, but if it's a low-acid food, it is highly recommended to boil. So, like, even for example, as Tisha already took up that salmon, like, before I'd even eat that salmon, even though that salmon would be perfectly fine, I would heat it up first, and then if I wanted it cold for something else or whatever I plan on doing with it, then I'd cool it down and then use it for salad or whatever, or I'd heat it up, and then after it's been heated up and it cools down, and if I wanted to make potato salmon burgers, then I would use it after I've reheated it, regardless of whether I canned it yesterday or I canned it fucking 7 years ago. I would treat it the same way, right? Okay, so almost done in this little cubby for now. Right, I'm glad I came in here, and being that this is an unstable box, Tisha, you want to come get this box? This one here is, I don't know, I'm going to take this one can go upstairs. Those jars...
Those are the ones that are popping?
Yeah, but I'm going to make something else. I'm going to make those jam buns, whatever.
Oh, these are the ones that popped right here.
Those are the ones that pop. Those
Okay.
ones I'll put in the compost. That's fine, but those ones are still sealed.
Sounds good.
So I will use, we'll start making that stuff with, I'm going to make like a cinnamon bun, only like a jelly roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, with them, because Uncle John and Auntie ShaMay aren't here anymore, and nobody's really eating jam. So can you take those out and put them in something where I can empty them out later? See how I pushed on it and then it closed itself back down?
Yeah.
So that's why I say you can't clang them around, and, you know, because, you know, you want to catch things as they go. Okay, I'll be back. Hold on. Okay, so I think I know what's been happening here. I think Elsie, been getting up in here and laying up on these fucking boxes. I'm not putting her weight too much, right? So you can see what I'm doing here, right? Now, if I had more soup, right, where like this kind, I could put it underneath this one, and then that on top, and then there wouldn't be no room for her, right? But the thing is, you know, I wish I had an actual wood shelf that was sturdy as a rock. But so far, this thing has been holding up pretty good, right? It's always made me a little nervous, though, because you can see, it's a little crooked. But, it doesn't move. So, you know, I don't know. As long as I don't pack it too heavy.